Now you all are pastors. So I know there has to be a rub at some point because of everything in the music business is not always above board. When you're faced with this stuff that's nefarious, how do you handle that when it comes to splits and contracts and all this stuff when everybody's integrity is not the same way?
Well, I'm grateful. I had a father who taught me about business. He taught me about, TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show. Yeah. TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the TrevBeats Show. So my guests today have defined the sound of music and been a part of some of the biggest things through many generations. Now, between them, the credits are way too much to, list off, but we'll say Beyoncé, Kanye West, Missy Elliott, Mary, Jamie Foxx, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder. The list goes on and on and on and on and on, and it doesn't stop. But when all that's done and the session is over and the stadium lights go down, they answer to a higher calling as well. Both of my guests are also pastors. Now, I know you might say that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. They're navigating the studio, the mixing console, the boardroom, and the pulpit. And they're balancing music, life, and spirituality. So they're what I call the intersection of spirit, spirituality, and culture. So these are legends in the music business, my dear friends, and I want to bring on Nisan Stewart and Warryn Campbell. Welcome, my brothers. How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so glad you guys were able to come. And I know everybody's time is crazy, and I really appreciate y'all for coming. So, we all known each other for a long time, and we're all musicians, but I've seen you all, grow into this season of your lives, and it's very, very inspirational. And we all close. We've had a lot of different types of conversations, but I wanted to have you on because musically, you are huge contributors, done so much stuff, and we're going to definitely talk about that. But now you have another type of, calling that's happening. And I want to talk just mostly about literally the time management part, because it's just unbelievable, to be full-time in the music business, high level, everything, and still have to deal on a weekly or even daily basis with your churches and being the shepherd and the head of that. So we can start, and I'll direct the questions too. We can start, basically, Warryn, we'll start with you. What's your normal schedule like on a regular week? Like balancing music and every Sunday having to do church. How do you go into the week preparing?
Well, I'll tell you the proposed schedule because I tell you it never pans out the way I'm planning it. Not fully, but the idea is that Mondays I do absolutely nothing. I don't talk to nobody. I don't do a session. I hang with my kids, my wife, or whatever we're doing. Or I'm just at home in my robe watching Sports Center, like literally all day, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays, I'll get up early and I'll work. I'll write for a little while, but then I have to get up and leave by 11 to be at my church for noonday prayer for an hour.
I see.
And so I stop there, do that, and which is on the way to the studio. So then I'll go to the studio after that and finish up, do some things there, then go home. Then Wednesday, I have pretty much all day to work. And then I have Bible study at 7. Wow. And so after that Bible study's over about 8:30, I'm back to the studio working. From Thursday all the way through Sunday, it's all about sermon prep. I don't do any work. I don't do any sessions, unless there's some kind of like circumstance where I got to go to the studio, but for the most part, Thursday is where I prep. I'm prepping for a Sunday, writing my sermon, doing all those things. Friday, I'm doing more of that. Saturday, I try not to leave my house on Saturday.
Mm.
And it's just all about Sunday. And Sunday, after church, I'm cool. I can hang out again, and I'm free. And then Monday, the cycle repeats.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so and so that means that, how do you address it when you actually have to go out of town? Or do you try to keep that, like for music purposes? How does that work, with having to be at church? Do you have a sub, or how does that work?
Yeah, I have a team at the church of guys that can stand in for me. And in previous years, it was, kind of just kind of flying by the seat of our pants because we never knew what was going on. But I made a switch this year. So last year, I planned and did all of my sermons, every sermon for 2026 is done already.
Ah.
And so everything's planned out. So now it gives my team a break and they know ahead of time what I'm doing. So the children's ministry knows what to teach. The teenagers know what to do. The music, the choir, the praise team, everybody knows where I'll be teaching wise, so they can kind of flow with that. And it gave me time back with my family, time to do other things. So if I'm out of town, I could be doing whatever. I was in New York, I was working with Nas like for a whole week. Then Saturday night, get on the plane, everything's in place. It's my first time doing it, and it took a lot of work to put it together, but it was so worth it because now it freed my time up to really
Yeah.
I can move around a lot more.
Wow, interesting. And Nisan, what's your weekly schedule like now? And I also want to touch on, like, when I saw you that time, it's like you do Dancing with the Stars, and I know that's a very early situation when you're in season. So how do you navigate that, around that time?
So, like Warryn, I started last year. Last year was the first year, 2025. I spent time in October and November of 2024 preparing, just being in prayer and thoughtful about, what I believe we needed to share with the community of our church. And so I kind of got a rhythm of that. So same thing this year. When we're in season with Dancing with the Stars, the main thing that made me say yes to that job, because I was offered that job the year after I became a pastor.
Oh,
So
wow.
And so when Ray called me, I said, "Well, what's the work days?" And he was like, it was Friday and Monday. I was like, "Cool, I could do it," because Sunday is what we do. So during the season, um, again, Monday is an early day or Tuesday is an early day. While I'm at work, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. It's one of those live television shows where you do your thing and then you have off time. So I kind of got my computer set up and I'll do some things and gather some thoughts while I'm at work. But for the most part, the schedule, similar to Warryn, is Wednesday, I'm teaching Bible study at 7:30. I'm usually prepared. The way I do it is uh, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days where I get my sermon ready. I don't want to be thinking about it, thinking about preparation at least of it on the weekend. And Sunday, what I do after I do that, I kind of gather some thoughts and kind of recap on the coming Wednesday. But for the most part, my it's a fluid schedule. You just never know. Because I run not only the church, but there's some other endeavors that we're tapping into. Something I'm getting ready to do with LAX. And another thing I do with the Community Development Corporation that I recently relaunched. That's taking the thing. So it's giving it a day. So Monday will be a day I spend time on the community development. The next day I'll spend time on the airport and other endeavors. But all in all, I got kids. Me and my wife, we got kids, basketball player. Um, my baby girl is a golfer, and a singer, figuring it out. So I'm like a guy juggling, trying to make it work. But the key for me is to think about it. Think about it ahead of time, put it in the schedule, what you want to do, and intentionally manage it. And I have an assistant that helps me do that. So I'm grateful for that.
That's crazy. Well, it sounds like both of you have teams for sure. And, they always say the best CEOs know who to hire and, you have quality people around you. But I think it's interesting too. I'm seeing a correlation because essentially, when you're a pastor of the church, you're basically the ultimate MD. I mean, you're an MD, you're running the show, right? And so it's like, I know those skills transfer over in both arenas because both of you have done that so much. And it speaks to just a stewardship and a way to deal with people type of energy that I know both of you have, incredibly, because I've worked with both of you. Now, the other question I have is part of your staff now AI? Is AI part of your staff at all when it comes to, helping for research or, not writing sermons, but you can do a lot with research and a lot of things, and maybe some other topics you can research in that way. So have you implemented, we'll go with you first, Nisan. Have you implemented AI yet in anything that you've been doing?
Yeah. So funny thing is, my nephew, who's a very successful CEO, he introduced me to the whole AI piece a couple years ago. Um, and I watch how he uses it in his businesses. He's in the medical field, has the largest Black-owned prosthetic and orthotics company in America, and he uses it heavily. So when he introduced it to me, he said, "Just think of it as a thought partner." Use it as a thought partner I gather things, because all of it is not correct. You don't want to stand up in front of people and share some incorrect information.
Right.
Using it in terms of a creative thought, I use it in that realm. I'm also getting ready to use it and explore using it in terms of the systems that we have, and in how we delegate assignments we use individuals for. But I think we have to just add to it, because if we don't, we'll be left behind. You gotta have it. So that's the way I'm using it.
And Warryn, what about you?
I definitely use it. Started off doing chat to help me, my style of preaching. I use points. So 3 points that help me help people follow along with what I'm teaching. So sometimes if I don't like, and it's alliterated points, they all start with the same letter, just to kind of help people follow along. If I don't like my points or the title of my points, I'll put my entire message in ChatGPT. I used to do it this way, and I say, I need a better name for these points, and it'll give it to me, the options and stuff like this. So I would do that, but now I've just recently invested. This is a great platform to do this, in a startup called sermonbook.ai.
Mm.
And what that does is it takes your sermon. You can have your clip or your sermon on YouTube. You can put the URL in here, and then you'll say, write me a 10-chapter book based on this,
Right.
and it'll spit out a book for you. You can write the book. So I use AI for that. And also when it comes to taking my message, when I do Bible studies, it's called the breakdown. And what I do is I take what I preached on Sunday, on Wednesday, I'll now teach it. I'll break it all the way down. And so I use AI to help me. So I'll put my entire message in Sermon Book AI and says, now break this down. It's a lot of prompting, but I've copied my prompts. So I can just, paste it over, and tell it what I need for an hour Bible study based on what I just gave you. And, it'll spit back out like, okay, it'll make me an outline for my teaching. So I do use it, and it cut down my time. I would have to do, if I did that myself, it would take me 3 hours to do that.
Yeah. Right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you, it's interesting you say that because I'm very heavily interested in AI and involved. And what the use case that you are talking about is one of the most emerging ways people are using it, which is for research purposes. And I've just now today, my third app has come out on the Apple App Store. And the first two are about AI related things. One's a prompting assistant, and the other one is a platform assistant, because there's so many hundreds of AI models and platforms. A lot of times we don't know which ones we can use to get the objective that we want. You know what I'm saying? Because I know the big three are, Claude, Chat, and Gemini, and usually Perplexity. But so many, especially like the Gemini Notebook LM connection where you can do tremendous amounts of research and all that. So the fact that you all are using it, is letting me know that we all know it's not going anywhere, but it's definitely the use case is what makes the difference, how we use it. So that brings me on to the wait, you hearing that? Wait. Oh, the big elephant in the room. AI and music. Yeah. So that's the thing that, I think the big, like, because understanding how you're using it and how your nephew and everybody, you never hear any issues. But when it comes to music, there's this moral divide that's just unbelievable. And we're looking at it as it's just another tool. But how do you see it in regards to music? We can start with you, Warryn.
I'll put it to you this way. A lot of people are using it. I just got a couple songs in a little while ago, and they use AI to help them write the songs. And as a purist, I felt like an old man because immediately when they sent me the song, it sent it to me through the Suno app. So I was like, I was turned off by that first.
First mistake.
Oh yeah,
First mistake.
That's a problem, bro. Download that thing, man.
Download that thing and give me so at least let me think it's, But then they all have the back end of, Udio or Suno, the back end of it all sounds the same.
Right.
So when you're hearing it, immediately like, oh, this is an AI record. Because you can tell the filter that it goes through, whatever they have on the back end of their audio, it's all the same kind of similar sound.
Sure.
Which I don't particularly love, but I do love the fact that if you need assistance in certain areas. So like if I'm sitting and I got this idea, I'll take one of my old tracks that I did in 1998 and put it in Suno and say, like, I need to reimagine this. And then what I do is I hear that and go like, oh, that's a dope idea. Then I will go and do it. I'm not going to use that and say, so that's one thing. But I also think in terms of the AI artist, I think it's cool as long as those artists are never competing with real artists, like for chart positioning, radio space, awards, any of that. Let them have their own thing over there. That's fine for whatever. But let the real artists that are really doing it leave us alone with that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nisan, what do you think?
So I had last week at the one of the Grammy events, I ran into Timbaland. We were talking about it. That same day, I had a conversation with Mars, Lamar Edwards, one of our
Yeah.
15. Yeah.
Mars swears by it, right? And Mars was telling me, I know they won't mind me saying it. Mars and Charlie had a big conversation back and forth about it. I haven't messed with it, to be honest. I have not messed with it. I don't, put a lot of as much time in as I used to in the production field. However, Tim, we talked, and so I'm going to go down to Miami and work with Tim for a couple of weeks. I think myself and Craig, we just going to get together and do what we used to do, and we mess with it, and we'll see. At the end of the day, technology is great, and maybe the consumer doesn't know the difference, but for me as a creative, I love watching you play the drums, Trevor. The way you're a master on the drums. Anything that's created that's not human will be able to give me the same thing that I'm gonna get from you. You know what I'm saying? That's my personal thing, and I may sound old with that too, but I think it would behoove these artists to make sure whatever is coming out in terms of technology, we got to make sure we're coming up with things for us humans to excel even beyond that. So
yeah,
what's
yeah. I mean, I think you all share the same energy that I've heard, from a lot of people, and that I believe. It's like, it's all about use case. So what you mentioned, Warryn, I mean, listen, that's one of the greatest things about it is realizing older ideas. And then when you have the ability to go redo them, it doesn't, just because you use AI in that stage doesn't mean that the master ends up being that. So we have people that are so heated. I interviewed Spud at NAMM. Man, we had a heckler. We had a cat come up to the stage that was like awesome. I had to wait. Hold on, let me be careful now, bro. Like, hold on. Like, it was too much. And I'm like, are you serious right now? It's like, yo, it doesn't have to be the end. It's just another creative part of the process. And to your point, Nisan, I think that exactly what you said, what we do as players, I think is going to end up being more valuable. But the good thing is AI can only go off what we've already done. So
Exactly.
you can't be in the moment. You can't, you are we're talking about church here. It's like both of you come from playing in church. There is no way you're reacting in the moment. You can't.
Right.
You can't have something playing playing an organ and then somebody do something and the spirit moves in the church and it ain't gonna catch that. You can't, it wouldn't have the way to look and play something that's gonna make the pastor or whoever emote another emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
These are all tools that we have. So there's no reason for us to be so fearful of it. And I tell this in every interview. If you were dope before AI, you'll be dope after. It's nothing but the fear, and you two are beacons, now in the ministry, but also as musicians. And I want to get into some of that stuff. So Warryn, obviously we've known each other since high school. I've watched you build My Block and I've watched you, go crazy with all the stuff you've been doing from being an executive and what have you. Nisan, I've known you equally as long. And I've seen you come up doing so many incredible things as a producer, as a drummer, as an MD. The recent Jamie Foxx comeback special, man, on Netflix, man. Congratulations. That's historic. But we're still in the music business. And now you all are pastors. So I know there has to be a rub at some point because of everything in the music business is not always above board. So how, now, in the place that you are now, how do you deal with that? I know we got lawyers and managers and all that, but still, as people, we're still people. And you all are obviously going to err to be on the right side of what's right. But when you're faced with this stuff that's nefarious, how do you handle that when it comes to splits and contracts and all this stuff when everybody's integrity is not the same way? We'll start with you, Nisan.
Well, I'm grateful. I had a father who taught me about business. He taught me about, standing on your business. Whatever you commit to, do it. If something don't feel right, don't do it. There's things, you don't have to say yes to everything, Sometimes, most of the times, no's are more valuable than your yes. And so, I haven't had any bad situations, even with some of the people that I've worked with that others have had bad cases with that we've seen and we see even in the current times. But I've been fortunate to deal with that. And let me give credit to Warryn too, because when I first got in, Warryn was leading the way. So Warryn pointed us in a lot of directions. That's why, I thank God for that brotherhood. So I've been good. But when it comes to bad business guys, I usually, I don't know, maybe I have a bad business repellent because I haven't had real crazy issue. I just be like, nah, we're not gonna do that, or I can't do that, and that's it. I'm not that thirsty or hungry for the business or for things. Whatever I own, I want to own that, and whatever I partner with, I'll do my best in that partnership. If something is minimal, while there is a lot of crooks out there, people that managers and crazy folks, it's just a little. It's a little weird with them, but I've never had bad business. I'll share one story. I remember we were doing a record with Missy Elliott back in the day, producing, me, Craig, and Missy. We did a lot of records together, and there was one artist we did something for, and they wanted to come in and take pretty much half of our publishing for the song that we wrote. And Missy taught us that, know the value of what you guys say. Nah, we ain't doing that. We'll keep this. Somebody else gonna get it. But long story short, the artist got it, and it went on to do very well. So I've been good. I've been fortunate. Now Warryn, as an executive, he may have some other stories. Some folks so I'll turn it over to them.
Warryn, the other thing too is you've always grown up in the church, but I remember when you were, either vice president or was it vice president of Atlantic or what?
I was vice president of A&R at Elektra Records.
Elektra. So that was before you were a pastor, obviously, but you still were you. So I know along this journey, you've now had something has challenged you know what I mean, your energy.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that, or how do you fire someone or fire back at someone with love? You know what I'm saying? Real quick, if you're new here, welcome to the TrevBeats Show. Make sure you subscribe if you want to stick around. And for the regulars, if you ever feel compelled to throw some extra support our way, check out the membership options next to the subscribe button. It's strictly for those who want to help us do more, but your viewership is support enough. Now back to the show.
Well, I'll tell you this, and all of us have fathers in our lives, or all three of us on there. And so, you know, when you have a dad raising you, it's a little bit different than, you know, teaching me how to navigate. First lesson I learned from my father was how to navigate bullies on the playground. Bullies know who they can and can't mess with. And so when you carry yourself a certain way, they know, like, you know, and you take, my dad was like, listen, first day of school, somebody try to, you know, bully you, you got to take that dude out and he'll leave you alone the rest of the year. And so I carried that energy with me everywhere I go. And so it's kind of a thing where people knew, like, especially the, I guess the big myth of Death Row Records and that whole thing that was around Death Row, like, don't mess with those guys, they're gonna get you. I came from Death Row. I started with DJ Quick, right? Then Death Row. So that energy that was around me, I think a lot of people thought that I was not untouchable, but like it was a thing where, like, well, don't really bother him like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even in my friend group, like, you know, with Nisan and the guys in the Soul Seekers, you know, you ask all of them, so, oh man, Warryn want to fight all the time. But I guarantee you, none of those guys have ever seen me punch nobody. You ain't ever seen me yell at nobody. None of that. It's all like so I had it's fortunate that I had a reputation of, like, you know, leave him alone. But even with that, I've had some people test me to where I had to stand on that. Yeah. So, like, a couple times, I remember there was a friend of ours, he was a songwriter, and he called me and says, man, I'm trying to get these splits, but they're trying to take my publishing, da, da, da. So I got in the middle of it, and the guys that were trying to take his publishing was some New York gangster dudes. So I had to step to them, you know what I'm saying? And we got into it.
Right.
I had to navigate that. Another time, I was signed, my whole publishing career has been with Big John Platt. When he first got his job at EMI, he signed me. I was the first brand new writer he signed. I didn't have any placements.
Wow.
He left there and went to Warner Chappell. I went to Warner Chappell. He went to Sony. Now I'm at Sony. He's now the chairman and CEO. Like, so we're close. I was in his wedding. He was in my wedding. My dad married him, you know.
Oh, wow.
And so Big John was my mentor, my main mentor.
Yeah.
So coming from Death Row, one of my first big projects, the artist wanted half my money and half my points and half my publishing. And so we were in the elevator, and they was like, and I got mad, and I handed the dude up in the elevator. and then I told him he could never come back to LA again.
Right. Yeah.
And I stood on that. I pressed the button. I made a phone call. Like, they can't come back here.
Yeah.
They had a whole meeting. Then we had to get on the phone, do a conference call, and Big John's on the call. And Big John said to me, Warryn, said, listen, man, I support you, but if you keep doing stuff like this, I won't support you. I was like, but they're trying to take. He said, listen, you can say no. I'm like, what you mean? He said, it's called negotiation. I had no concept. I just thought they could just take. Right. I didn't think about negotiating.
Right.
I had no concept of that. And so he introduced that. This is very early in my career. And so, but the fact that Big John said he won't support me, man, like, that guy's support was everything to me at that time.
Yeah.
So it gave me a quick, like, 180.
Yeah.
I was like, no, okay, I gotta chill. He says, man, I'm gonna teach you. He said, those guys that are trying to do that to you, they've learned the business the wrong way. I'm gonna teach you the right way.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've never had another problem. I just negotiate.
And that's also great leadership and mentorship. And, you know, one of the biggest deals in my whole career came from Big John as well. So he's done a lot for, you know, people, and he's just a stand-up guy, and it's a great, you know, role model type figure to have around. But, you know, I'm glad you shared those stories because, listen, you know, you're still human. Being a pastor doesn't mean all of a sudden you're not human, you don't have any problems, you don't, you know, and it doesn't mean soft. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
I'm not big of a scripture quoter, but I know it's something that's about spare the rod, spoil the child. So if you gonna if you're gonna use that at home, you know what I'm saying, then you're gonna sometimes have to use it out in business too. Nobody's
Yeah.
right. So it's very interesting. This is for me, man. I love this conversation because I just don't feel like we get. First of all, we don't usually get a lot of people that are equally as known and successful in music, at least secular music. Let's clarify that too. Secular music as well that end up being pastors. So I love this conversation. I feel like it's very unique. Now, when it comes to music, and a lot, you guys have had a lot to do with this. It's very different in gospel music than what it is. It's the line between gospel and secular now, as far as music goes, has really gotten close, with 808s and trap and this and that. Right. And do you think during the fact that has happened, because, we all grew up with people that, we don't listen to secular music and that whole vibe. But now it's almost one and the same in a lot of ways, genre wise. So do you feel that in that morphing, in that, kind of transitioning, that the messages are not hitting as strong than it used to be when it was just quartet or just gospel? What do you think about that?
Well, let me go first
Yeah.
for me, I use my kids as the barometer. What I've come to understand is that everybody is not trying to be, they're not really into the sound of traditional gospel. Some people love God, but they love him their way, Like I had a guy tell me, a bishop once tell me, if it doesn't sound like a hymn, it's not authentic. See,
Right.
this preference, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
It, they have, they're good kids. They're not perfect kids, but they're good kids. And what they listen to, they turn me on to a lot of the gospel music that sounds, that's in the trap, the 808s, all that good stuff. And I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't think it changes the message at all. I think it's really about those individuals hearing it and the way they connect. Some people will connect with quartet. Some people can't stand quartet.
Right.
You-
Right.
I don't know why, but
Right.
that's their thing. But so whatever individuals need to get themselves where they're trying to go, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah. Warryn, what you think about that?
Well, I'll say this. I didn't grow up in a house where my dad, who was my pastor, was telling me like, you can't listen to secular music. My dad listened to secular music, and he was my pastor and my dad. He didn't like me listening to like, NWA with all the cussing. He didn't really like that. But
Yeah.
I was allowed to listen to. He's the one that introduced me to, Joe Sample and
Right.
stuff like that,
Right.
because my dad was a bass player as well.
Right.
So I had a little different mindset going into it. What he told me was, you got your occupation, which is your music, and you got your salvation. So, but you can't let your occupation run all over your salvation. You got to have standards. It'd be salvation first, the occupation second, right? And so I had that kind of barometer. I don't know how that led me to death row, because that was the opposite of all that. But I was so attracted to that music, man. Like when I was in the studio with Quick, man, I was learning so much. Like I learned so many valuable lessons about production from Quick, so I wasn't really tripping on the content. It wasn't even a thought at the time. But now when I'm listening to my kids and the music, my youngest, she raps. And she loves Tyler, the Creator. I look at what she's listening to. I'm like, wait a minute, man. At the time she was 11, she's 14 now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they just cussing like cussing. Wait, you can't listen to this, So I would find, you have to find them. So them growing up with us and their mother being a gospel music superstar, basically a dad, a gospel producer, whatever, they, like Nisan, they kind of inform us because they don't know a lot of the older stuff.
Right.
My oldest daughter does. She's 21. She's an old soul. She loves old music.
Crazy.
Yeah, she's junior in college.
Right.
And so Yeah, it's kind of like I look at it like this: everything over time gets watered down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know you heard your parents say, "Oh man, the food that we used to eat ain't the same as it is now."
Yep.
My grandfather, when he ate pig feet every day. I would never touch a pig. I would never touch a pig foot. You know what I'm saying? And this dude was eating all kind of stuff, but he was like, but the food was different.
Right.
It wasn't as watered down, and
Yeah.
it wasn't genetically modified and all this kind of stuff. Our music now is a lot of it is watered down,
Right.
which I do believe some of the message is watered down because it's just different. Like when I listen to certain gospel music, I'm like, man, I can't feel it anymore.
Mm.
Like I used to listen to the Wine Into Commission or Joe Lagan and Michael Collins. I could feel that stuff. Like, oh man, some of the stuff I can't feel. So now when I'm making music, even though I'm doing things that are more contemporary because that's just my nature, I wasn't trying to make. Because a lot of this contemporary stuff is, I'll say, I'll be generous and give myself at least 15% of it is my fault. Because you know what I'm saying, when Mary came in, they were so big.
Yep.
And I didn't know how to make a gospel sounding record. I grew up in church and could play in church, but my teeth was cut as a producer in hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how to craft a gospel sounding record. I just knew how to do that.
Right.
I was doing with Mary when I first got with them. I was doing what I did with Quick and with Drew Hill, and I was doing that.
Right. Well, it
And
worked.
so I would, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But so it changed. So everybody started kind of following that on different levels. But the message was strong. So now what I got to do is I have to strive to make sure, even though we're doing what we're doing, make sure what we're saying still, I want to feel it. If I can feel it, then it's gospel.
Yeah, I feel that, man. And you know what?
Yeah.
I think also there's the flip side of that, which is the fact that what you were doing at the time became so big. Now you've brought in the audience of people that get inspired by it and people that it is reaching. So, I look at that as, man, you were just a vehicle at the time with the music. And it was like, maybe there was a divide between the younger generation that now there may be a lot more younger people involved in listening, you know what I'm saying, intently because of the fact that it's something that they can relate to. So,
but also the audiences are very much now openly homogenized. Before it was closeted. So now the same person that loves Mary and Kirk Franklin loves Jill Scott and N.D.R.E. and and all that and Eric Benet. It's the same exact. And I say exact same audience. They going
right.
And so before they liked the music, but they hid them records in their closet. Now it's like, oh, they going to the show. Like I mean, my pastor, Bishop Kenneth Ulmer, he took his wife to the Luther Vandross concert, right?
Right.
He said he saw one of the church members there, and they said, "Bishop, what you doing here?" He said, "I'm here with my wife. What you do? I'm here doing what you doing. What do you mean?"
Yeah. Well,
And that's it. Y'all
are
I gotta,
still people.
Absolutely.
I mean, you might, I know people, there's a natural inclination to put the people that, we look up to and get information from on a pedestal and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. It's a show of gratitude and all that. Sometimes it gets crazy, but, at the end of the day, that's a natural inclination. But we can't forget everybody is human first. And, you all have families, you all have things, and you do things to break off steam, you know what I'm saying? So it's nothing wrong with that, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that it is getting homogenized like that now is big. I think that's honest, and it's a great push forward. So listen, I know everybody's busy. We could sit here and talk all day, but I got to ask my favorite question, which is a question of legacy. So this is going to be funny now because we've talked about this AI already earlier. But we'll start with you, Nisan. If you could leave only one for the next generation, if you can leave something behind for the next generation of musicians or pastors, you can you have two things. You can either leave your discography or you can leave your hard drive full of sermons. Which one is it going to be for the next generation as far as what you're trying to be remembered for? Nisan.
If there was a discography that was more detailed just about my life experiences, I think I would leave that. Through all the ups and downs, the mistakes, the victories, the triumphs, the failures, or not failures, but those learning moments, I would leave that. And I think you would you would get the essence of the Bible. Because that would be it would be a roadmap, you know. Because at the end of the day, while we're striving to be great family men, great leaders, great musicians, dealing with ups and downs. A lot of people read the Bible but don't know how to apply it, or the application of it is not, as forthright as it should be. But for me, I say I would leave my discography of my life so that somebody can say, okay, this happened and then he did this, or that happened and he did that. And I think it's pretty decent. You'll see a lot of mistakes in there, but you'll see a lot of victories, and you'll see happiness at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, and you just said something now that is almost like a theme of what we've been talking about today. It's like and we should stay here for a second. The Bible, it's something that we all have access to, but yet you have a lot of different interpretations of it and a lot of different applications. So essentially what you're saying is the same thing we're talking about AI, which is it's all about the use case. It's how you use the tools that we have. So Warryn, legacy wise, you leaving the music, or you leaving all your sermons that you got in the hard drive?
Man, I think I would leave my sermons, my words, because my music is in the ether. But let me tell you why. My father, when I first started preaching and pastoring, one Sunday I preached a message called "Say Word," right? And the next month was Father's Day. And for Father's Day, my dad gave me a gift. He gave me 3 notebooks. They were black leather-bound notebooks with all of my grandfather's sermons, handwritten sermons in there.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was called Speak the Word. And with the same scripture that I use, some of the same stuff that I never heard my grandfather preach that, And a lot of these sermons, watch this though, that my grandfather wrote, he never preached. Because he wasn't a guy, he wasn't given opportunity. He was a Moody Bible Institute trained pulpiteer, and because he was a teacher, he wasn't one of those hooping preachers. He didn't get an opportunity, but he wrote them all down. And there was 3 books, and my dad gave me those, and so I have the legacy of my grandfather's words.
Wow.
And whether we know it or not, our words are seeds. And whether you're speaking negatively or positively, it don't matter. The harvest is coming in. And so I want to leave a legacy of words with my family, things that I said, that'll be seeds that grow in them. The music stuff, I love music. It's my passion, but it's something that I do. It's not everything of who I am. My words and what comes out of me, that's who I am. And so I think I would leave that, because in those messages, I'm in there.
Got you.
I'm in there,
Wow, man, that's heavy, man. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, you brothers have, and we all around the same age, but you've been tremendous inspiration.
Both of y'all a year older than me. I know. Say that.
Yeah, I know. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Now, you've been big inspirations, and we've all worked together, which is it's also a blessing just that it can still happen, and it's been almost 40 years or 35 years. That doesn't get to happen. Everybody's still here. Everybody's family's intact. So, being able to do this, man, is a very I'm very proud of this, man, just because I've watched where you all have become, incredible in the music business. We already knew that, but this other walk that you guys, stumbled into at this part of your life, not stumble, but that you were destined to do, it's held at such a high regard. Nisan, I know, your nephew, this fine young man, and, just Warryn, seeing you with your family. So it's like, listen, this is inspirational to me. I know it's going to be inspirational to a whole bunch of musicians, and it may be inspirational to some people that are musicians that might want to, find their way to pastor or being a pastor and having a church. So I thank you for your time and spending your time coming here with us on the TrevBeats Show today. I'd love for you to just for the other viewers that don't know, Nisan, can you just give out your church and your time that your service is and stuff?
Yeah, so we're Greater Emmanuel Temple. We're in Linwood. That's just on the east side of Los Angeles, 3740 East Imperial Highway. We're there every Sunday at 10 a.m. But you can follow us on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, our Instagram, GET Family Now or GET Family TV on YouTube. And you can just check out some of the things we share. It's all about everybody getting to that better place in their life, that necessary place of better, if you will, so that people can live and just enjoy life while we have it, because we don't know how long we're going to have it. Yeah.
Right. And Warryn, right, that's beautiful, man. Warryn?
The church is the California Worship Center. It's 214 North McClay Avenue in the city of San Fernando, which is about, if you know where North Hollywood is, about 7 minutes east of that. And all the socials, you can catch us at Cali Worship. That's kind of the nickname of our church. Everybody calls it Cali Worship. Mm-hmm. And we're there at Sundays, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So you got 2 service times. If you want to go at 9 a.m., you get your brunch on after that, or come hang with just a little bit longer service at 11. 9 a.m. is sometimes we're out by 10, sometimes 9:55. But 10 and 11 a.m. service, we're out by 12:30. Okay. And then you have our Wednesday night Bible study, Tuesday, 12 noonday prayer, and Friday noonday prayer. They're praying right now. And so, yeah, come hang with us anytime. We're there.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's just been a blessing having these brothers here, Warryn Campbell, Nisan Stewart. Check them out. Just thank them again for being here at the TrevBeats Show. Really appreciate it, y'all.
Appreciate you, man.
Oh, and if you do sermons on the use case, let me know.
All right, bro.
All right. Yep.
All right, brother.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. It helps us with the content moving forward. Also, we have our membership program, Backstage, various tiers, and you can also join that now. Also, our store is connected to the site now, so if you like any merch, anything from the TrevBeats store, check that out, and that helps the channel move forward as well. And until then, we out. Peace.
It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. We out. We out. We out. We out. We out. It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. It's the TrevBeats